This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, this meeting is being recorded. Hello, y'all. What's up? I'm LTJ Reeds. This is Throwing Light. And if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. Before we get started, I just want to remind you, building up my YouTube channel, all the Throwing Lights are on my YouTube channel. So when you're watching this, please go over to it because you're watching it from my YouTube channel. And subscribe and follow whenever we get any new updates. We've got the Throwing Light tour that's going on. We're finishing up our fifth city. We're going to be heading to New York City next month. So if you guys want to follow all of that, plus all of my cool creative content that's going to be coming up, that is either inspired by the leather community or inspired by my pride and passion to make our community a better community. With all that being said, let's get started and kick it over to our Mr. Pittsburgh Leather Fetish 2024. Michael, what's up? How are you?
I'm good. It's a little cold here in the Berg, but I'm keeping cozy.
Well, it's cold here for us too. It's in the 40s. So, it's our winter, and we're panicking, It's not, what is it like, what, 2 degrees up there right now?
It gets worse, but I'm preparing myself.
Good. All right, Michael. Well, then let's talk about what led you to your title. Like, how'd you get involved in the leather community or activism, leadership?
Yeah, I think a lot of my work starts. I was really passionate about specifically global health and HIV funding, and I started out actually as sort of an HIV activist that focused on global funds, specifically the Global Fund and PEPFAR. I was a part of Active New York when I was still living in New York, and so um, as an organizer, I'm very enmeshed in engagement of community through organizing and activism. And then when I moved to Pittsburgh about 7 years ago, I was trying to figure out how to like acclimate to a new environment, a new place, and the leather community was really vibrant and active, and I saw that as an opportunity to grow, but also to continue doing what I love in a new space as I got older as an adult. Um, I wanted more out of life, and I saw this as an opportunity or a gateway to do that. I went to Mid Atlantic Leather and I saw the competition, and I also met a lot of amazing people. And I was just like, this is for me. I want a piece of this. And so, yeah, then I competed for the Pittsburgh Leather title. I mean, a few years ago, I competed too, but I wasn't really ready then, nor did I know a lot of things, nor did I have a lot of leather also when I competed like 6 years ago or so. So I think there was a bit of buildup and growth before competing again for 2024. That was amazing. I really enjoyed my title year. It allowed me to pursue a lot of goals and dreams. One of which, once I became Mr. Pittsburgh Leather Fetish, was highlighting the various communities, the various LGBT communities of Pittsburgh that always don't get the attention. Sometimes I feel like a lot of our communities are sort of siloed. There's the leather and bear community, and then there's also sort of like the black and the ballroom community. And for myself, I really wanted to try and be a bridge for a lot of these communities. So yeah, during my title year, I made an effort to, one, actually like participate in a lot of the ballroom community events. I went to balls, I walked in a ball, and then I also collaborated with some ballroom leaders into creating a leather fetish ball during our Leather Pride weekend. And it was an opportunity for the worlds to collide. I negotiated to get some vendors out at this ball, and the categories were also really kinky. So we had one for the big bears, we had one for like the pets, to really try, and we had one for drag also. So it was about trying to give everyone the opportunity to be highlighted, to be seen, but also specifically in the context of the ballroom community. Yeah, another part of it for me was, so I also work in the field of HIV. I work for one of Pittsburgh's HIV clinics around an internal housing assistance program. And for me, I always felt like there wasn't a lot of sexual education within our leather and kink scene. I feel like there were a lot of events happening, gear nights and club nights, and then sometimes there would be some like dance parties at the at the bathhouse, but I don't oftentimes see people like intentionally talking about sexual health in the context of leather and kink. And so, yeah, I wanted to highlight that also and bring that into the fold. So, during my title year, I was able to participate in AIDS Free Pittsburgh's prevention campaign, wearing my sash, which is no longer in my my ownership because I have title children now. But yeah, that was really, really important to me, to actually bring attention to the fact that, the epidemic is still prevalent and there are still people who don't have access to life-saving medicines. There are some people who don't have access to care, and there are still people who are, contracting HIV. So there's no time to ever slow down on this fight. So it was a matter of like bringing all my worlds together to make my life better. So yeah, that was sort of what led me to go into the leather world, because I was getting older and I wanted to figure out how to continue living and participating with my community in this sort of more adult context.
It's really great to be having this conversation, especially with World AIDS Day just passing a couple of days ago on the 1st. I actually came out publicly about my HIV status this past 4 days ago.
Come
So,
through.
14 years. So I didn't, it's not that I was ashamed of it. I always, just the way I thought, people weaponized HIV against me so much. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Like, even my peers, like, if I were interested in somebody, like, they were the type of friends that would take pictures with me, would be like, oh, man, go talk to Lewis, he's HIV positive. And that was 14 years ago, and it was still scary. It was still very scary because, especially if you were contracting it in a very small town and you've got that small mindset, there just wasn't any community for it, if you get my saying. You didn't want to be seen at a clinic or anything like that. And it seems like a long time ago, but it's really not. But I I consider myself like, Pedro Zamora has been one of my biggest inspirations. And watching him on the real world when I was just a kid, and being an advocate for AIDS and HIV, it made me less scared of it. And though I contracted it through drug use, before I had it, I was in a relationship with someone who hid it from me. But I never thought, I always thought I had the maturity to be with someone if I was negative with someone positive, because, hey, it's love, right? And there are ways to be with the people and protect yourself, correct? But
right.
it's pretty interesting. As soon as I made my post, because I've told my family and everything like that, it was more, I was just keeping it private because I didn't want it weaponized. And I see a lot of people living their lives and being an advocate for it. And I just felt like, well, it just makes sense. It makes sense for me to grow and mature, and this has been a part of me. It's manageable, and I don't want people to be afraid of things they don't understand. So it's been interesting. It's been interesting, but since I did that, I got a lot of messages and things like that, and there are a lot of people still living alone with this, and it was
Definitely.
sad to get those stories in my DMs, and try to talk to people that, like, this one guy sent me a message and basically he's just giving up, like, says, I'm just at home alone with my cat. You know what I'm saying? I'm in this town and I don't have any support, and it's sad. It really is, because I wish people could be where I was today. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But through your reach out and your efforts to help people with HIV awareness and things like that, you would agree that we are still fighting ignorance about this, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. I think there's a lot of misinformation. A lot of people aren't educated. I think a lot of organizations and activists have been doing a really excellent job of spreading the message of you equals you and undetectable equals untransmittable. But the reality is there's still a lot of people who don't know much about sexual health. and don't know much about HIV. And so I think that we have to continue educating the public nonstop, and I think it's unfortunate that the administration doesn't really care that much about people living with HIV by not commemorating World AIDS Day this year. But I think as a community, the rest of us have to take up that mantle ourselves.
I think it's really important. And not that I've already been done. I mean, I've been done since 2016 with this administration, with this person. But to me, that gesture was like I'm gonna fuck you up moment for me because we are going through a really dumb and dark part of American history right now. And I emphasize dumb and dark uh,
Yeah.
because to me, that is obviously saying you don't care about my life and my health and things like that. That also makes red flag. You're going to enact policies and things that are going to prevent us from progressing with HIV. That's what I feel. That's what I see. And I'm not going to let people kill me. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this administration is killing people, hurting people, harming people. If people want to deny that, you're just a fool. Like you, I mean, they're bombing people without our permission. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a lot, but to see how much growth and how hard it is to fight the stigmas and be in this position today and then have leadership in our country not understand the battle and also the stereotypes of it because HIV is affecting everybody. And yes, our community talks about it a lot, but that's because we're more sexually aware and obviously we're having conversations about safe sex and things like that. You know what I'm saying? And people don't know how to have that kind of dialogue. They're not raised and taught. I didn't learn anything about sex growing up, the internet. You know what I'm saying? Um, but how can we do a better job at, I don't want to say policing, but, and I don't want to call out, but how can we do a better job at correcting people when they say misinformation or when they are, picking on someone that has HIV? Like, how can we be better at keeping people from doing these things and getting them to be a little more compassionate about the disease?
Yeah. I don't have the most faith in humanity. I think a lot of people are terrible, but I think we can really
Fair.
call people in, as I call it. I think, if someone is misusing language against other people, I think, message them directly and let them know, hey, this language is somewhat hurtful to people, I'm affected by it, and I'm sure other people are too. I don't typically get into the weeds of like commentary in the digital world. I rarely ever well, I'll go into comments for like laughs, but as far as like going back and forth with people, it's not something I would typically do. But if someone says something completely egregious, then I would definitely just call them out. Be like, hey, this is not right. This is not correct. You're harming folks.
Are you, when you're working with people, are they being rejected because of their status?
Um, it's a lot. Yes, people are definitely being rejected for their status. A lot of individuals don't want to talk about their status and they'll just say that they're, negative and taking PrEP, which I don't have an issue with because people can do whatever they need to do to be safe and in their society and their environments. I also think a lot of people, it also depends on like how many other human beings you've been exposed to. Like I think in Western Pennsylvania, there's a lot of isolation in small rural communities. And if you don't know other LGBT individuals, other people of color, or other people living with HIV, it can be very isolating or even feel isolating. And so I think connectivity to people who share similar lived experiences is really, really important to not feeling isolated and alone, especially if you live in places like that.
How can people do the work to not be alone? Like, what would I told you about the guy that's in my DM, and it's like I tell people they have to get out of their ways first to do anything. And we get on our own way. And if you've created the mindset that you're alone, you're going to be alone, right? What advice would you give to someone that's in a small town right now that doesn't know how to reach out? Where can they go? How can they get that empowerment? Like, how can we start getting these people to reach out and believe that there's a life that they can achieve happiness with if they want?
Yeah, I think it's a few things. I think one, just initially, that person who reached out to you online, like that's the start. If you see folks that are inspiring to you and you have access to reach out to them, ask them questions. Because what I've learned in this walk of life, specifically in the leather community, is that most people are friendly enough to respond to you if you ask them or reach out. And I think that we have to do more of that. We're all humans, we all bleed. And so I think that like we shouldn't be apprehensive to engage each other. And I think, I don't know if we've lost social skills because of COVID, but I think that, we have to make a conscious effort to reach out to each other, say hello. I mean, I'm terrible of that because oftentimes I'm so, focused on my work and tasks at hand. But then sometimes I will literally stop doing everything and go through my phone and say hello to people that I haven't like seen or heard from in a long time because
Yeah.
I know that like people go into isolation, and also we're going into the winter time, so it's kind of compounded a bit too, especially if you live in a place that's really dark and doesn't have a lot of sunlight. Pittsburgh is a pretty gray, desolate place in the wintertime, and a lot of people go through seasonal depression. And so I think that adds to it also. And I think that we need to check in on our loved one, check in on our friends, send smoke signals if you need to.
Yeah, I got you. So balls, we haven't gotten to talk a lot about balls. Where you said that you are taking ball culture and you're using that as a bridge to all these different communities, right? I'm very curious. Tell me a little bit about a ball that you've done in the past.
Yeah. So, I mean, one ball that I did was like, it was a Juneteenth ball during my title year, and one of the categories was leather versus suede, and I was like, "Ooh, I really like that. I'd love to like mix a lot of clothes together and see what I could come up with." And that was like the first one that I like. I've walked other balls, but this was the first one that I actually like won the competition or that particular category. But that was also a leather category, so I was really excited to dominate, for a lack of a better term. I think one of the reasons why it was so important to me to connect with the ballroom community of Pittsburgh is one, because I'm not from here. I don't have like friends or community or people that I've known forever. And so for me, it was about connecting with people to make sure that I have what I need to survive in this sort of town. Pittsburgh is not the most diverse of places. And I feel that for me, being connected to other Black people and culture is important. I'm not going to get that just sitting here in my house because my partner is also not Black. And so there's also a difference in culture there. And so for me, connecting with ballroom and other people of color in Pittsburgh was really important for my own existence and my own well-being. But then the other part of that is that I think our leather community can be viewed as pretty white, just based on who is there, who is highlighted, who has been titled year after year. And I think for me, mingling allows other people to see themselves in me and realize that they too can have access to this space and this community. So that was a pretty crucial part of the workings as well.
When in terms of being a person of color and being in Pittsburgh, are there any events or activities that help bring, especially Black people in leather together, or is that something that hasn't quite manifested yet?
It's been a while, to be honest, since there was a specific leather or kink event that was POC focused. Um, the ones that I can think of is like maybe a year ago, I curated an all Black cast for a leather takeover, which was amazing because everyone was extremely talented. So that was pretty great. And then also, I think back like this was maybe 3 or 4 years ago when Gustavo Onyx, at the time was going by Lee, was a leather man of color, and he had an event And a few people came into town. I think Jack came into town to visit him for that event, and also Rod Onyx came into town, who is now my mentor. So it's been a while since there had been a specifically like a Black POC focused leather and kink event, but yeah, they don't happen too often.
We are I've had people in the past, and we've had these conversations a lot about when we have BIPOC panels and reputation like that sometimes, that we don't have enough panels for just Black people in the community. That for some reason that we're still struggling. If we got, Nazis and stuff still kind of having some connections in our community. Obviously, we're dealing with racism, things like that. I come from Louisiana and a period of ignorance and where Black men are fetishes and things like that.
Yeah,
You know, I think this is something that's becoming very passionate to me because there's so many shades of Black. I'm a shade of Black. I'm just now, ever since I got involved in this community, I've been accepted from the Black community. It didn't feel like that so much prior to that, just because of my experiences were quite different. I grew up in an all white neighborhood. I was around a lot of rednecks. I heard nigger all the time. It wasn't directed to me necessarily, but like that was a word that's thrown around very casually all the
yeah,
time. Um, and I think a lot of people, especially if you're not Black, don't quite understand the amount of abuse that we go through just by existing. And we
yeah,
do this as queer people too. But what I mean, so more or less, is that there's active policies, active politicians that want to see Black people behind bars or dead. And I don't think anybody can deny that. And if you are denying that, then you are really not in tune with what American history is. And it seems to be a little bit more fear in bringing Black people together than it is to bring, and this is just from how I feel, and I could be wrong, but there feels like there's like this aggression stereotype, this when Black people get together, they act a certain way. You know what I'm talking
it's gonna go
about?
down. Yeah,
And I don't see that. I don't see that hesitance of putting other people of color panels together, if that makes sense to you. And I'm trying to figure out where that energy comes from. And if I'm dealing with racism in the real world, in the large scale, I'm dealing with racism in the LGBT community, and I'm dealing with racism in the leather community. So, what are ways do you think that we can become more unapologetically our identities, especially being Black people and congregating as Black people, bringing leather and connecting with our culture, our music, things like that? I feel like we could I feel like the community would be very helpful and not letting us be guest stars in the show and
yeah.
actually giving us a starring role. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. It doesn't happen very often, but it's something that I have intentionally been thinking about and doing specifically around a monthly kink and draw workshop that I've been doing for the past 2 years with another local kink and leather artist, Clint. And every month we have a different community model. And I make a conscious effort to reach out to individuals that are Black and people of color and various gender identities who typically aren't the ones getting the limelight in the community because I want them to experience what it's like to be on a pedestal because everyone is fucking beautiful and everyone deserves that attention, you know? And this is the kind of attention that gives people the confidence to embrace leather more and to, who knows, maybe even run from a title. So yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that we are engaging and giving people of color and everyone else an opportunity to be seen and to realize that they are valuable in our community.
I think it's like, so we just got our third Miss Frost Eagle, and I was the first. And so, but I'm a person of color. Then my sister Ken was a person of color. So, being pioneers of our title and also being people of color, we also had to feed our identities. Like Ken being Asian and Asian representation was super important to Ken. He went to Japan, all of that. For me, I knew being the first, I needed to just be a bridge of all types of things. So my title year didn't really, it wasn't like zoning in on one aspect. I needed to be as much as different things as I can be. But now as I'm going into I think after you get a Sash son and now you have a Sash grandson, I think that's going into like 3 years. You can step back and just start being that mentor role. I'm ready to be a leather man as a whole person. And there is a little bit of title holding and competition that that's let's be honest here, we have tons of leather events that happen all year besides IML. And a
Yeah.
lot of these smaller communities don't have a lot of representation. And for me, I look at, hey, this is going to be me going into my third IML, able to see people connect, have opportunities. And now I'm ready to grow beyond just that event. And I want to start going to events where I could spread the message of light here. And I feel like I have completed, well, I'm almost done completing my mission of establishing the title, having two, now our third title. Now we're there. I can leave that world behind a little bit and focus on the growth. I would love to be a part in the production of IML one year. I would love to travel. Like, I got to go to the UK this past year and go to Manchester Leather Weekend. I'm hungry. Like, I'm like, and when I say hungry, I'm hungry. I'm hungry for success. I'm hungry for community, and I'm hungry to see how big the world is out there. And I feel that I wish a lot of people that went to IML had the mindset of it as being a launch pad. And I know there are a few people out there that think that this is the biggest thing that will ever happen to them. I can't change someone's perspective of what
Yeah.
means to them. But what I know, this has been about establishing who I am as a person, connecting. Title holding was a great opportunity for me to connect to the community. That was the first thing I did. I'm only 3 years old. So I am grateful for the experiences. I'm grateful to have gone through the competition, all those people. But I have a lot of these relationships that are now established, and I want to see my people, and there's a lot of events competing with so many things. And so
Always.
yeah, and I just want to take some time to step back and
Yeah.
appreciate the leather community as a whole, and that's just kind of where I'm at right now. um
I
I know at IML you were phenomenal. The thing what I always tell people, like, I mean, your walk almost won the competition in my opinion. Like that, you have a walk, and it's something. I might have to get you to teach it to me. But like just your gait and your confidence on stage, you just see it, and you watch someone actually like become a star on stage. But like your confidence on stage, you were phenomenal. And I'll never I mean, if I see you in person, I'll probably just be like, hey, can you just walk for me for a second? Like I just But there's so much more than just your walk that you're giving to the community. And so as we're getting towards the end, I want to go ahead and ask you this question. I ask everybody the same question. What is one aspect of our community that you feel that we are not shedding enough light on?
I don't know if I would consider this. Okay, hear me out. I've always wanted to throw a party called Boots and Blunts, specifically to talk about the usage of marijuana. I remember when I was first titled, a lot of elders used to say things in my ears along the lines of like, be careful where you are, like don't be caught like smoking in public spaces and stuff like that, which is so contrary to me because I feel like as a culture there's always cigar smoke being, praised as a kink. But yet there was this sort of like weird duality of like smoking marijuana, specifically around like people of color, that I found to be like hints of like racial bias under there, but only in that context, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. Like they were looking down on like urban people smoking blunts, but yet it was okay to smoke cigars. So I was just like, it was kind of a weird thing that I experienced. So I was just like, you know what? Not to mention that so many individuals are like dealing with HIV and a lot of other serious mental health
Mental health.
stressors like anxiety. And so the fact that there was any sort of like apprehension around people engaging blunts and marijuana that I've experienced through this community made me want to do that as a way of like pushing it in their face to be like, this has just as much importance or relevance in our lives as cigars do. So, any of that like talk that like demonizes people of color for smoking blunts on the patio or whatever, I wanted to make sure that they know that this is the way it's going to be, moving forward. So yeah, that's just something that I've always kind of interestingly seen, and I would address through a party if I had the opportunity.
I don't ever think I've gotten the opportunity to discuss this, and this could be a whole discussion on its own. I just made 3 years sober, crystal meth. I'm just complete. I'm talking about connections, everything, not
Yeah,
everything gone. Marijuana maintenance was a part of my recovery process, and if you don't know what you know anything about that, you can actually there are books about it. I'm bipolar. I have bipolar disorder. I think I'm bipolar too. And it's just that was hard. I don't some people are strong enough to do that, but for me, it really helped. Marijuana still helps. I mean, it's not
yeah,
legal here in Texas, but they're doing the whole like Delta 9 crap over here. So it's here, which is weird because if that shows up on your system, I've been very blessed to work for companies that don't drug test for marijuana. They don't think that's I think it's helpful. Anything could be abused. I mean,
yeah,
alcohol takes in point. My dad was an alcoholic. I would have rather him been addicted to marijuana. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
this is something I would love to jump on board with you and just kind of be invisible and vocal about that because I don't think that that should be, especially where we're living and where half of the country is legal and half of it's not. But still, the countries that are legal are still selling off brands of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like that. It's if you can go, I can here in Texas go down the street and walk into a store and go buy weed right now.
Yep, all those like CBD, THA, and like all the other
They're
like
selling
derivatives.
all of that over here. So, because this was an issue in a leather group down here in Texas, is that there was a group and they wanted to rewrite or be enforce kind of rules of being in this leather organization, and they wanted to put no drug use in the, I guess, in the bylaws or something. You can't smoke. Like people were a little shaken, like a little reserved, saying you can't use marijuana at events.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, why can't we? And so I don't know, dude. It's a weird thing to navigate because there's people in our community that think that I'll be honest, I just don't look at marijuana the same way I look at crystal meth or cocaine or
Yeah.
acid. Like I just don't. And it's a social drug too. You know what I'm saying? Like that. People literally stand in circles and smoke it just like they'd be standing around smoking a cigarette. You're
It's a
getting a
beautiful
high from your cigarette, and I hate the high from cigarettes. It makes me want to vomit and throw
yeah.
up. But I agree with you, dude. I totally 100% agree with you. I feel like that shouldn't be you shouldn't be shamed. And then it shouldn't even be more shameful because you're a person of color because you're doing
Yep. And that was sort of like something that I kind of felt and heard in my walk of life. And I was like, you know what? One day we'll speak on this.
I think that's a conversation I'd love to help you facilitate, or if you want to start, I'd love to be a part of it. But like, we definitely need to go after the things that make sense in our community and finding more ways to judge people and over things that are medically proven is just a little ridiculous to me.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Michael. Well, that has been this episode of Throwing Light. I'm so glad that you did this. This is a great conversation. Very timely. I had no idea it'd be this kind of conversation. So it was just perfect. Are you going to IML next year?
I am going.
Well, I will be there too. So I will be there hugging people and wishing them well this year and venturing on to new things. What I'm ideally probably gonna do is probably take a 2 year break from IML and then come back. And at that point, who knows what I might want to do? You know, heck, I might run for Mr. Texas. Who knows? But
Yeah,
right now, this chapter is closing out. If that makes sense.
it does. And I share a lot of your sentiments
Mm.
of like wanting to grow and wanting more out of life. That was the whole reason why I even competed for IML, is because I thought that it would be a bridge to other opportunities, a reason for me to travel more. I need reasons to get out of Pittsburgh.
Hey, that's
And
fair.
this,
I need
this is what I want.
I'll come there and get me out of Texas, dude, anytime, every day, all day, every day. Get me out of Texas because it is crazy here. Man, can you imagine being in like I tell everybody, Texas is the asshole state of the country, hands down. They're the only state that wants to be difficult. So it's just pray for us.
Florida's got some problems too. Let's not leave them out if we're going to be back talking states. But but yeah, I hear you.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, y'all. That has been another episode of Throwing Light. Before we go, Michael, you have to do one thing. I should have told you this at the beginning, but I'm going to count to three, and you're going to say if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. You ready?
I'm ready.
One, two, three.
If you're not throwing light, you're not acting right.
Tell them, Michael. Tell them to act right,
You
especially
better.
they better act right. Tell them Michael will come after you guys. All right, y'all. Thank y'all so much, and we're out.